Good morning. I'm on my way to work. It's Tuesday morning, third week of Great Lent, and I got all kinds of things I could talk about. Yesterday was a really bummer news day, all kinds of negative stuff going on, and I don't like to get focused on that. I try to focus on the kingdom of heaven, trying to maintain my inner peace, trying to repent from my sins, and I've got plenty of them, and that can get discouraging because if you don't stay focused on prayer and God, then you will fall. It's unquestionable. So it becomes a habit building effort to stay focused on God and not get off track. I'm a layman, I'm a convert, I'm a simple person. I read lots of stuff and I do lots of research to keep my mind occupied, to keep me out of trouble, because I learned over the years, I'm fairly intelligent, although as I'm getting older my brain's kind of declining, but when I was young I used to be able to just listen in school and doodle, and I would ace the tests but without having to study very much. And I was lazy, I didn't want to do my homework, I wanted to have fun. Well, that got me in all kinds of trouble, and that became a bad habit. And so and I was rebellious. My father was a strict disciplinarian. I was a preacher's kid. He was a preacher. He was actually, his father died when he was 11, and he was raised mostly by his older brothers and sisters. He was the youngest of 10 children. And so that definitely affected his personality. He was really focused on God as his father. And that was a real blessing for me, but I didn't see it that way at the time. So he depended on God quite a bit for everything. And it was very apparent in his life. He suffered a lot in the process. Well, my mother taught me when I was young that whenever you make a mistake, or whenever you belch or excuse yourself, you do it to the equal volume that you were offensive. So like if you belch, you say excuse me as loud as you belch, and you really should not belch loudly. You should try to keep it down. So think of an obnoxious little 10-year-old boy making belches. That was not cool in my mother's English family. So I think kind of the same thing applies to my sinfulness. So I've made a lot of mistakes, and I feel obligated to try to correct those mistakes publicly in my repentance. But of course the Orthodox Christianity and the scriptures teach that we should pray in secret, we should pray in private, and not do our works before men to be, to draw a lot of attention in a prideful way. And so I try not to do that. I try to do it very humbly. There are plenty of examples in the lives of the saints where they were very public about their, efforts. But it was not for prideful reasons. It was for the reasons of drawing people to Christ, to draw attention to people, to get them to look and to think about God, and to consider their mortality and the purpose of life and how they're living their life. And so that's the spirit that I'm trying to do this in. I'm not a good public speaker. I can speak publicly, and I've done it, but I'm just not one of my gifts. And I can do it all right, but it's not something that I really enjoy doing. Some people are really gifted at speaking publicly. If you want to get better, more advanced speakers on Orthodox Christianity, I have on my YouTube, I collect different subject matter videos, and I categorize them by month and year that I watch them on my community page, or community section of my page. And you can go there under church or Christianity for whatever month, and you can watch videos that I watch that I thought were good. I watch a lot of videos that I don't think are good that I don't include, but the ones that I do put in those categories I think are pretty decent videos to watch. So if you want a good selection of videos, or if you're just curious about the kind of stuff that I watch and pay attention to, I would go there. I used to collect political videos too, politics, history, but I quit doing that because the internet is so inundated with that. In fact, I kind of suspect that the social media pages like YouTube and Facebook and Rumble and all those are basically propaganda pages. They're basically meant for social engineering and collecting data on individual people, and they're putting them in boxes of categories, psychologically profile them, and then psychologically manipulate them by controlling what you can and cannot see, and using that as a rudder to control how society works. So if you want to create conflict in order to weaken the people and strengthen your position of political position in the country, you can do that by manipulating individuals without them realizing it, and get them all fired up and worked up, and then they pop off like popcorn and influence others around them, and you can kind of control the temperature of the volatility of the social environment and political views and all the stuff that's going on by doing that. And I don't know that people really realize that's what's going on. I don't think they do. Even a lot of the people who are very popular speakers and news, alternative news people, I don't think they all realize how they're being used and manipulated to. Maybe they do. I don't know. So my purpose is as a layman, as somebody who is I study and I'm an intellectual as a hobby, not as a career. I'm not looking to make money. I'm not looking to be famous. I'm just a normal person that likes to read a lot. And my father was a historian. Our house was a library. My father literally gave away half of the books of our house to a public library, and the other half he gave to the church because they were all religious. Tons of history, and science is I like science. My father got me stuck on history, but I also like science. He wasn't into science as much. So anyway, I really focus on those areas, and medicine. I like helping people. I like serving people and helping people. It's my niche in life. That's what I like to do. So that's kind of what my page is. It's just, I'm not an expert. If you want a polished, really fancy or enjoyable, I hate to not be enjoyable, but let's face it, I'm not very polished. If you want somebody who's really polished at this, presenting this stuff, there's plenty of other pages. The only thing I have concerns with those is that people who are really, really polished tend to be going into whatever they're presenting with a certain agenda that they're trying to accomplish to influence people and manipulate them to their point of view in a subtle way. I'm trying to be very blunt and upfront. So basically, yes, I have my own personal beliefs, religious beliefs, political perspective, and I will tell you what those are, and I do. But primarily what I'm trying to do is to influence you to actually go and read the history yourself from the time period of that history. And don't just take my word for it or some polished modern perspective of history looking back, but actually go back and read it yourself. Read the original writers of that time period. And I'm not going to spoon feed that to you, because I'll be doing what the other people are doing and trying to present it in my perspective. And that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to draw attention to the fact that people are being manipulated and served up recipes of history that take parts and leave out parts, and they don't want you to read the whole thing because it doesn't suit their narrative or what they want you to believe. That's very dangerous, and that's true with Orthodoxy too, Christianity as well. It's huge in Christianity, because the Protestants only recognize the last 500 years of Christianity. They don't tolerate the first 1500 years of Christianity very well. And the Roman Catholics do the same thing with, they're focused on the last 1,000 years. They don't want to focus on the first 1,000 years of Christianity, where some of what they're doing is, well, a lot of what they're doing now, but it wasn't always as bad as it is now. But yeah, they're not teaching or practicing what the early church fathers taught or practiced. And even among some people who call themselves Orthodox Christian, they also have wandered off the path of the original teachings of the church and practices of the church. So if you don't know these things, then you can't properly discern what's happening in the moment, what's happening right now in the world, because your perspective is all skewed, and that's a serious problem. It's really a lot like a blind man being led around by somebody who's telling them what the world looks like, but is choosing to tell the blind man some things and not telling him the other things. And so the blind man thinks he's got a good idea of what the world's like based on what he's being told, but he really doesn't. He doesn't have a clue, because it's really distorted, because the person that's telling him it is leaving a lot of it out. That's really important. Having said all that, as an Orthodox Christian, you get to the point to where you don't really want to spend too much time and energy focusing on all the peripherals. You get to where you really come to understand that what we really need to focus on is God in our heart, and trying to purify ourselves of our worldly perspectives and thoughts and feelings, and trying to unite and get to know God. Unite ourselves with Jesus Christ in the church, understand His teachings, and become like Him, become one with Him. And we do that through the sacraments and prayers and the readings of the saints and the life in the church and taking communion. And the proper way to teach people about God is to participate in the church and those prayers, because you absorb it by osmosis. I mean, literally, that's what happens. By listening to the prayers of the saints, by listening to their writings, by listening to the scriptures, by participating in the services, and by trying to live it in your day-to-day life, in your moment-to-moment existence, it becomes you, and you put on Christ. And that is the wedding garment that we're supposed to wear if we are to get into heaven. And if we're not wearing that wedding garment of Christ, and we haven't purified ourselves, and we show up all grubby with our sinfulness and expect to be led into the wedding, we're going to get kicked out. We don't belong there. And not to be political, but that's kind of what just happened in New York with the police officer's funeral. The funeral is, the wedding. It's where the police officer was going to be united with Christ. So, that's what happens at death. So, we don't want people there who are responsible for that, for the death, acting like they're, supportive when they're the ones that caused the situation to happen in the first place. Well, that's kind of what happens. If we're showing up into heaven all sinful, it's a scary thing for me to talk about, because by talking about it, by teaching this, I have to really super duper be careful about my life. And that's why it's foolish. That's why the church and the Bible teaches it's foolish to talk about these things. But in my situation, it's kind of like, I don't remember which general or commander it was, but it's kind of like the commander who showed up with his army in ships and then burned the ships at the shore, so that there was no going back, there was no retreat. You have to go for it. And that's kind of what I've set myself up to do, because of my sinful life. There is no going back. I have to go forward. I have to struggle. Now the problem is that, that in life, this spiritual warfare is very similar to the physical warfare, and that you get targeted by the demons. They want to make an example of you, and they really come after you when you speak up and you try to live a life of Christ. They don't pull punches, and they really come after you. So then you have to really stay on guard and try to pray. And if you don't, you're going to fall hard. They're going to tear you up. And that's frightening if you've ever been in a spiritual combat. That's not a fun experience to struggle with. So don't think that I really am gung-ho or prideful or think I'm better than anybody else sharing this stuff. It's actually quite humbling and scary, and not something I really enjoy wanting to do. But I'm kind of in a situation in my life where I feel like that's what I need to do. I need to speak up. I don't want to be the person with the talent that buried his talent in the ground and then gave it back to God and said, here, this is what you gave me. I have to share what I've got and try to increase it in a variety of ways. One way is investing it. The monks, I visited monasteries several times that my father was at, and I was told by one of the monks that the monks pray for the world. They pray for all of us. They pray for everyone. And they devote their whole life to that, prayer and work. They work to make things, to sell, to be able to feed themselves, so they can pray all the time for the world. And they give that to us who come to them for sustenance and support spiritually. And then we are supposed to take what they give us and do the same thing in our humble layman ways, and share what we're given and try to increase that. And it's all to increase to the glory of God. We're working for Christ, and we're working for each other to help each other get into heaven. And so that's the point. It's not I intentionally do not try to polish my videos, because I don't really want to get out there and become popular. But I do want to do my job, and I don't want to become popular because I think I'll become more targeted, and I don't want to draw a lot of attention to myself, because I don't trust myself. I'm sure to make mistakes. And so why not just be honest and be kind of rough at the edges of who I am right off the bat, and I don't have to worry about don't have to worry about that, like keeping some sort of false facade up. This is who I am. So I didn't even comb my hair this morning. So that's kind of the only way I feel comfortable doing this. And the way I view it is that God, the people who need to see it or want to see it, God will, it's there. It's there for people to see. And of course, the spark that got me going was my grandchildren. Thinking about me not knowing my grandfather because he died when my father was 11, I would really like to have known him, or have videos of him, or journals, or something that I could have known who he was and what he was like. And I couldn't do that. And my father couldn't relate the stories to me very well. And he encouraged me to write my own stories. And so I've done that. And I'm continuing to do that for my children and grandchildren. So a lot of my kids, like I said, I've got a lot of children, and only one of them has given me grandchildren. And they're small. And I'm getting old. I've got some health problems, but I don't know how long I'm going to live. I may live another 20 or 40 years, I don't know. But I don't want to, sit on my hands and not give them stuff that I would want for myself. Treat as you wish to be treated, in other words. So, all right. Well, I've rambled on enough, and I'm almost to work, and it's 22 minutes in. So this is, I don't know that this video has a whole lot of gems in it, but I just kind of wanted to explain myself a little bit. Because some people, people do these videos for different reasons, and sometimes I don't think they're all good, and I'm not sure mine are good. I'm trying to make sure they are good. I'm kind of working through that out loud on my video right now. So, because I go back and forth on whether I really want to do this or not. So, pray for me, a sinner. God bless. Over and out.